Okay, so now you can stand the box up on its base, and we've got the front, the sides, panels completed. Now we just need to put on the top, and this will actually fix in by itself, so you do need to use a little bit of force. But what we're going to do is, you'll notice that on one end it's got two holes in the flap, on the other end it doesn't. So that is the back and this is the front, and we flip it over ready to place it on top of these mounts, which will obviously be where it's screwed in. So in this situation, what we're going to do is just line up the corners and then gently tap each corner to cover the frame. And when that is done, we can tip the box over and finish the screws. Right, so I just had to apply a bit of force to put the corners over, so you can see that the corner of the box overlaps each of the corners of the frame and panel. And it's still not screwed in yet, but we'll flip the box down again and put the screws into the top to fix it in place. Now that's done. What you may have noticed is that the frame itself is still loose at the top, this front frame. That's okay, because what we're going to do is put the parcel flap back, and that will connect it into the side panels and lock it in place. Okay, so here's our parcel flap. As you notice, it's got spring-loaded hinges on each side, so that makes it pretty easy to just slot it into one side and then spring that into the other hole on the opposite side. And that's done and ready. Now the frame is locked into place. Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll assemble the back door. And you'll notice that on one side there will be these little rubber notches. So in this case, the door is going to swing from left to right. But if you really wanted to, you could drill holes on the other side and move the rubber notches across and swap the door around to swing the right to left, if that makes sense for you. So with our back door, we'll notice that there is a spring at the top and nothing at the bottom, just a hole. So this is where we find a small piece in the bag that looks something like that, just a pin with a rim on it. And what we'll do is we'll use that to position the door into the bottom hole. So we'll put the pin in the door, position it into the hole, and then maneuver the top of the door into its corresponding hole at the top with the spring load. And it should look something like that when you're done. Now, in this video, we don't go into the installation of the box. This is just the assembly, but you will notice that there are 4 holes in the base. They're used for the anchor bolts to anchor your box onto a concrete platform. And this is the strongest way of making sure that your box stays where you want it and doesn't move. The other interesting thing that you might have noted already is that the package comes with a piece of foam. And that foam is not just packing for the box, it's actually a base for your parcel box. So the first thing it does is it covers up the anchor bolts, and the second thing is as parcels drop down, they land on a relatively soft surface. Now I've just put in the key just to make sure that it's the right key and it works, and you'll notice that it's sort of not locking. And basically the problem is that this little locking arm just needs to be bent out ever so slightly, just a millimeter or 2. So if you need to do that, please do that, and that'll fix that problem. Okay, so now I've just moved to my comfortable bench. What we're going to do now is take the internal parcel flap, that's this one with the 2 spring hinges on each side and a flat top, and we're going to connect that to the rods and then into the box itself. So the first piece is that we have a rod that has 1 hole in one end and 2 in the other. Now the flap is going to be connected via its hole here with a small screw, not the larger screw but the small screw, just connecting it into each end. So 1 rod on each end using the single hole. Okay, so I've just started the nut on each of the ends of the rods here. So they're not tightened up at all at the moment, and you might have wondered why I have a set of pliers. Well, that's really just to hold that nut while I get the drill and gently drill that, screw that up tight. So we'll do that on both sides. Okay, so that's done, and I like it nice and tight so it's not going to flop around, because that'll make it easy when you insert it into the box and connect it to the parcel flap. And so what we'll do now is we'll do that. We'll come over to our box and insert this into the framework at the back, and I will just get a light to show you where that is. So that's these notches that are at the back, and you can see they have holes in them, and that's where the spring latches will go into to put the internal flap. Okay, so that is now in place, and you'll see that I've just got the rods sticking out for me, and that'll make it easy for me to pick up when I put on the parcel flap itself. Okay, so now we have the parcel flap and in its guide here. So what we're going to do is connect up the guide to the flap. We flip it over, and you'll notice that there's these little notches on the sides of the steel here. Just be careful, they are sharp, so just be careful you don't cut yourself. What I do is I just take a pair of pliers and bring them out maybe 15 degrees, maybe 20 degrees, just a small slant, that when you slide on the grooves to the parcel guide, it's a little bit easier to get them in place. So try that, and once you've got your parcel guide in place, then you will be folding down the flap to secure it, and I'll go to that next. Okay, so we've now done that, but you'll notice that the flaps themselves are still sticking out a little bit, and what I do is I get the back end of a screwdriver nice and hard, rather than my thumb, and just simply use that to push it down tight and flat against the surface. Right. So then you'll see that the flaps are nice and tight. Oh, that one's not. I'm going to push it down a bit more, but mostly they're in tight. Our parcel guide is ready to go and to be connected to the box. Okay, so similar to the other hinges, you'll see holes at the bottom of our frame here, and a couple of spring hinges at the bottom of our parcel flap. So we will connect that now in place. Okay, so it's connected, and now what we're going to do is bring our rods out and connect those into the side holes on each of the flaps, and you'll see that I use the hole that's the second hole in, gives a better security for the internal flap to come up closer. So that's why the second hole exists. If you prefer, you can use the first hole. It's up to you. All right, let's connect that up, and I'll show you how that works. To connect that, we're going to use, by the way, the long screws and these little plastic washers. So each washer will go on a screw on the outside, like that. And then as we put it into the hole here, we'll put another washer in between that and the nut. Now you'll notice that I've put the washer so that the thread is facing outwards. That's very important, and you'll see why in a minute. Okay, so that is just with the nut started on both sides. Now what we'll do is get our screwdriver and pliers and tighten that up. Okay, so now I have attached the nut on each side, tightened that up, and we're ready to fold the box and flap back into place. Now the way that this is done is that you take the flap and you gently just pull it in to the center so it goes around the back of